All right, welcome everybody to today's broadcast of Running the Rifts coverage of the Open Qualifiers. We will be pre-recording these streams as we are not allowed to stream them live. We'll instead be getting these cut up and sent out to all the teams on Monday. So if you're watching now, welcome. It's been a couple of days. LCS is done with, and we are now getting ready to watch back some Open Qualifiers. My name is Gordo. I am going to be shortly joined by TDS as soon as he is able to get on back towards his chair. And we are covering the draft here for the number 30 seed Apex Flame Horizon, taking on the number 3 seed in Aporia. A really exciting squad here coming through for Aporia especially. Apex Flame Horizon coming in with the bones of the Able Esports roster from last year, who were able to go 2-3 in their Open Qualifier. Not quite making that top 16, but hoping that a couple of changes here in Zepp and Lengi are going to be able to push them over the edge and on towards that top 16 spot. Meanwhile, Aporia, they are in the territory of looking to win the whole thing, coming in with a stacked roster from top to bottom. It is going to be Lawrence, Music, Samikin, Lynx, and Rovex. A lot of eyes especially going to be on Lynx here, coming down from the NACL, having played throughout the year with AoE Esports, going to be relied upon as a big source of power for this Aporia roster to try to make their way into the NACL promotion tournament. A Senna lock-in first, coming in from Apex Flame Horizon, as they look to set up for a potential double support bot lane, maybe going to abuse those double support items that have been talked about so much in the deserving of nerfs category in recent days. Now Aporia hovering an aggressive bot lane of their own in this Caitlyn, putting their eggs into the Lynx basket already, as they rely on him to be able to get them over the edge. Him and Breezy were such a powerful bot lane duo for AoE, especially in the summer split. I think their laning stats were quite good, and definitely ended up a little bit disrespected there. Now, pairing up alongside Rovex, a very tenured support in his own right, played a lot of mid lane throughout his career as well, was in the NACL on Team Liquid first. These guys should be one of the big powerhouse bot lanes to watch coming into this Open Qualifier, and they're going to support it alongside a Maokai coming into the jungle for Music to try to support the rest of the squad. An Olaf hover coming through for Apex Flame Horizon now. So they might be looking to take that for Kadek up in the top lane. Could also be an option for Verdict in the jungle. And now looking at this Tom Kench to pair up alongside the Senna instead. They want that tried and true bot lane duo. Probably going to fast the Senna at least somewhat. And now there's a Kayn hover. These kind of AD assassin junglers are what Verdict has made his career on so far in Open Qualifiers, and would be very exciting to see him pilot something like this coming into the day. Swapping over, though, to something a little bit more traditional in the Xin Zhao. That might be what ends up being the selection as it gets locked in for AFH. They are going to look to have a really powerful jungler to play around, a really safe bot lane in this Sam Kenshin Chenna, just looking to get as farmed up as they can. That will give the classic Lux-Caitlyn duo over to Aporia. Doesn't matter how tanky that Catfish is, doesn't matter how much sustain the Senna is going to be able to provide. They are going to be under great threat, especially in the early game, facing off against Caitlyn and Lux. The one-shot potential these guys bring to the table, the range these guys bring to the table, especially up against an early-level Senna plus a melee support, is just going to be so dangerous for the Apex bot lane. Second phase of bans coming on through. A Shen ban going to be directed towards the top lane. Surely that Udyr ban is looking towards top as well. That has been that new hotness since making its big appearance in the LCK. And top lane bans now flying back and forth. Lawrence going to lose access to his Jax. The Jax was one of Lawrence's best champions during his recent tenure in the ACL, where he was able to find so much success on that pick in particular, was such a big carry force for his team. And Apex Flame Horizon want no part of that coming into their first game of the Open Qualifier up against such a higher-seeded team. Mid lane bans now being hovered for Aporia. As they look for the Syndra, they will take that Syndra off the board. Now Apex looking to see what they want to round out their picks and bans with. Hovering for what could be an important decider here. It is going to be that Hui taken off the board, at least considering taking it off the board from Samakin. We have not really gotten to talk about much yet, but Samakin peaking rank 1 last year, really broadening his horizons, no longer considered a Zoe one-trick, and really wowed a lot of people in open tryouts over the course of this last offseason. That's how you get out of one of these really stacked rosters like Aporia, and he has rocketed from being on teams that couldn't even make top 16 to now he's on a team that is one of the favorites to be top 4 and to be in that promotion tournament. Going to be a big change of perspective for how people are viewing this player, and he is going to get the R5 pick, so they are going to put the counter pick in his hands here, trusting that he is going to be able to perform up against Zepp. He is able to get that counter pick. Meanwhile, the Cassante blind for Lawrence in the top lane, still a really powerful top laner. Some things never change. Sometimes your Iceborne Gauntlet gets removed, but Cassante still going to be a plenty powerful pick nonetheless. It's going to get responded to by the Ornn coming into the top lane for Kadek. And now a blind mid laner. The Corki hover is not serious. I refuse to pay it any heed. We'll have a little bit of time to see what the actual pick is going to be. Twisted Fate, I have heard a little bit about Twisted Fate play. Coming a little bit back in. You got a couple of buffs here and there. Mainly centered around AD Twisted Fate, but AP Twisted Fate can use them as well. Is this Corki going to get locked in? No way, dude. The Apex Flame Horizon Corki comes out across Zepp, going to blind Corki in Game 1 of Apex's Swiss run. That is a bold decision, but bold decisions are what you have to make when you're the number 30 seed trying to fight your way up into top 16. Now Samakin hovering that Yone as his choice for counter pick. Should be locking that one in. I think that makes a lot of sense into the Corki. Really well established to be able to play the lane early on up against him. The range difference, of course, going to matter, but Yone is no stranger to having to deal with range differences, and Corki not the most powerful in the early game either. It's going to end up rounding out this team comp. A lot of pick potential. A lot of really powerful early laning as well in the form of this Caitlyn and Lux. I expect a lot of play towards the bot lane. Aporia going to be pushing in this Senna Tahm Kench. Going to be threatening dives pre-level 6. That's been how a lot of teams have wanted to focus their gameplay towards the bottom lane in this new patch, and now looking like it is going to be like that. As we are rejoined by TDS, as the draft is rounded out. TDS, how's it going?
And yeah, I took my sweet time. Sadly, I had to tend to some business quickly, but I'm here. I saw some of the draft. I honestly don't understand why Aporia went with something as Apex went with something as safe as they did. But at the same time, it sticks to the meta that we know of, right? It's Corki mid lane. Yes, it's blind, but Corki mid lane at this point in the game feels like one of the strongest mid laners anyway, so it's understandable when they are opting into it. Same for the Senna. I think the Xin Zhao is one of the most interesting pieces because you're pretty much banking your early stage of the game towards him. If he's able to get the ball rolling, like you were mentioning before as well, trying to attack that bot lane as much as possible, putting Caitlyn and Lux as behind as he can so that you can then ride that wave towards the late game where you have the stronger champions, then that can work out really effectively for them. But it's banking way too much on a Xin Zhao. It's fun, it's a fun idea, but I feel like it's a bit too risky if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, the Corki surprises me. I have not gotten to see a lot of Corki so far, but I mean, that does kind of tilt this into being a really hard scaling composition. Once you get those Ornn items doled out to the team, that's got to be super powerful for your Senna, for your Tahm Kench, for your Corki, to be able to get those upgraded items, get those extra stats. Facing off against a pretty well-rounded Aporia comp, I would say. They've got some real big late-game threat in this Yone as well. The Maokai always so reliable, but that bot lane with Caitlyn and Lux is really where the focus is going to be as they really look to just make it hell to play in that bottom lane as the set of Tahm Kench just getting shoved in at the threat of getting dove by the Maokai. Will be very tough for them to play.
And the big potential as well is kind of nice to see because you have the Lux binding into Caitlyn Trap combo, you have the Maokai point and click CC into the Caitlyn combo as well, and then Yone has a lot of 1v1 potential in the side lane. Same for the K'Sante actually to a certain degree. So if Aporia is able to get early control on the side, able to control the side lanes with the Yone and the K'Sante, there's not a lot of champions that you're willing to send to the side to try and stop them from pushing because they can end up dying actually. Like Corki and the Ornn can wave clear effectively, but at the same time, they are going to take a lot of damage. They are going to be forced into trying to survive for as long as they can towards their turret, and then they may just end up losing everything anyway. So overall, I do think that Apuria has a lot of good choices or options if they end up dominating the early game and then being able to control a lot of the map early on. But if not, I can see the team fighting version or the team fighting point of the game in favor of Apex just because their composition is much more straightforward towards that sort of point.
Absolutely here, as we are now getting into spec delay. We got a couple more minutes to chat about this draft.
As always.
Yeah, I mean, I assume a lot of people are going to be consuming this through highlights only, so a lot of this is going to end up on the cutting room floor. So here's your opportunity to really speak your mind on what is semi-broadcasted. Definitely going to be an exciting... Oh, go ahead, TDS.
I was just going to say there's a lot of stuff to keep in mind, not only with the drafts, but just the idea of the teams, right? Because Apex is a team that kind of came in with a last minute potential, but I do think it's quite high what they should be able to try and accomplish. I think Aporia, even though their roster looks solid enough, and obviously they are one of the higher seeds, I call this, but I feel like they're one of the more upsettable teams in the Swiss bracket. So in the OQs, I mean. So I feel like as long as you're able to get a good enough draft and you don't just mess up completely early on, this could be one of the best chances for Apex to accomplish this. And if they already upset one of the top seeds, then looking forward, it's going to make a really fun dynamic for the OQs. And it almost always happens.
Completely agree there. Upset's always on the table. I was talking about this before you got here, TDS. I think very cool to see that Aporia is putting a lot of reliability on their carries. They're putting a lot of eggs towards these two carries, who I think both have a lot to prove coming into this open qualifier. Lynx, having been dropped from AoE after playing in the NACL with them for a year, going to be anticipated to be one of the best bot lanes coming in to this tournament and getting trusted with that Caitlyn very early in the draft. And then Samakin, who has never actually gotten to make top 16 before, always been on 2 and 3 teams, having a really big breakout offseason, really impressing a lot of folks in these combines, getting himself rank 1 in solo queue, and getting himself onto one of these stacked rosters. He's gone from a player that never makes top 16 to a player on a roster that a lot of folks think will be top 4 in that promotion tournament.
Exactly. This is I would say even more so for Samakin than for Lynx. Obviously, Lynx is more so trying to prove himself once again so that he can go back up to the NACL level. I think for Samakin, this is the year where he finally can step up to maybe some of the expectations that he kind of set up for himself, right? Because now with the rank 1 moniker, yes, obviously a lot of people don't value that as anymore as they did before, but that's still a really good accomplishment to have on your back. And then the fact that he was able to consistently perform in a lot of the combines that we had in the offseason, I think speaks a lot of great stuff for Samakin. And I think that this could be the moment or one of the OQs where we really see Samakin popping off, trying to shine as much as possible, and then being en route to be one of the next mid laners that you're expecting to see in the NACL.
Absolutely. And, love to see up-and-coming North American mid laners. Samakin, been around the scene for a bit, but, was a Zoe one trick for a fair amount of that time. Now trying to shed that label as he comes in to a new year. It does look like we've already got a little bit of a pause coming in-game, so maybe a little bit more time to chat. I will get all of our settings figured out so we can transition on into the game here before too long. And I just realized, this is all pre-recorded. There's not really a reason for me to not just transition this in as soon as I can. Let's see.
Yeah, technically speaking, they shouldn't know anything of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like anybody can come in and spec snipe this, so... There we go. We're in game. We can look at the pause timer all together. And let's get those time controls down.
It's just going to stay there.
Yeah. Oh, okay. What have I done? There we go.
Seems like you're still getting used to the controls.
Oh, I am not the guy who usually runs these spec clients. I have not had this without Caddy or PVFs doing it for me. in a long time. So it's going to be a learning experience for all of us. We're going to mostly be on directed cam, as it does look like we are unpaused. We are ready to get onto the Rift. Game number 1 of the NACL qualifiers are underway. Apex Flame Horizon taking on Aporia. A big seeding differential. This is one of those games that, on paper, you expect to be a gimme for Aporia, but there's always a reason we play the games. There's always upset potential in here.
Exactly, and it's a one, right? So even more so for this team to make things happen. They have one game where they just need to perform great enough. They already secured one victory. We need to remember, people, the 3-0 is the mark, right? So as long as you get 3 victories, that's at your area. You need to be able to find this, and with the BL1 as an area, you are bound to find some of these victories in maybe matches that people weren't expecting. But as we see the game starting, no level 1s. I was expecting some cheesy level 1 maybe coming in from the side of Aporia, but it looks like it's not going to be the case.
Indeed. So, going to be a pretty safe setup here. Just keeping their eyes open. Rovex might find Gabex here, but not going to really be too much opportunity to do anything, especially when you've already started E on the Lux, the Lucent Singularity. It'll show you where folks are, but it won't do too much to stop them from running away from you. Although a 4-man squad going in for this delayed invade, they might be trying to challenge onto this red buff. And without Verdict being on that side of the map, it doesn't look like there's going to be too much of an opportunity to stop.
It just ends up being a bit of the Senna getting some poke damage and them denying some vision on the side of Aporia. But yeah, it's going to be pretty much the red buff and the birds stolen by the Maokai. Maybe this could be a slight HP advantage though for the bot lane. And I'm just waiting to see Verdict goes for the opposite side of play, right? Like, they did leave vision on the side of Aporia towards their top side just in case, but that still could be just setting up for the Xin Yao to go up there and try and steal it if he gets control.
Absolutely. So going to be Music getting an early advantage in the jungle. Set up for a potential 3 buff. We'll have to see if they're going to be able to set up with Lawrence in the top lane to actually make sure that they are able to secure their own red and not just become victims of vertical jungling. That Xin Zhao is so powerful in the early game. But instead, just going on towards the Krugs, looking to take as many camps as he can get. He's got a full 3 camp the bottom side. And I don't know what Verdict's plan is going to be here. He might try to cross on over, but that will be putting him into a little bit of dangerous territory with Lawrence taking the early control. Look at that flash from Rovex and the full combo on the Linji. That is going to be first blood to Aporia.
I was thinking there was going to be a slight dive attempt because there's no Devour on the Temp Kench. They can try and attempt this really early on with a huge wave and Music being on the bot side, but they just instantly pull the trigger, first blood going for Lynx, and the matchup already starting quite badly for the side of Apex because now the bot lane that should win is winning really heavily.
Absolutely, and we talked about how they're going to put a lot of eyes onto Lynx here coming in off a year in the NACL, but I think that credit goes all the way to Rovex. Completely unexpected 100%. Flash in to be able to land that point-blank light binding, and completely unplayable from Linji from that point on. Didn't even get to use his flash to try to stay alive.
Exactly. Really well done. One thing though is that they do keep their flashes, so it could be a potential play for Verdict to rotate down there, and then with no flash on Robex, you can try and set up for a potential kill. That being said, now the poke and the control from the Caitlyn Lux is just going to be so unbearable, and with the wave pushing into them, this could also end up setting up maybe for Music to look into a play if he really wants to. He's still on the bot side, but I'm not sure if it's going to end up turning into something like that.
Yeah. And the jungle scenario also just miserable for Apex at this point. It's been split vertically by Music, and now Music finds himself with the ability to camp this bottom lane. No chance for Verdict to help it. And Verdict's target would have to be this Ornn Cassante lane. Ornn is not the champion you want to play towards and set up in the early game, so he's immediately left with only really the choice to go bot lane, and as long as Sam can play safe enough to not get ganked, there's no options for Verdict left.
It's really difficult to look for something for Verdict here, and I think it's unlucky with how the game went for the side of Apex, because it's not a lot in what they were doing, but more so with the preparation that the side of Aporia went in, right? Because that level 1 really changed a lot of dynamics that you end up seeing. Typically, it would have been a 2 buff into ganking bot from Verdict because he was starting topside. But because of the way that they prepped that level 1, it just completely messed up everything, and it kind of just enabled Lynx and Robux to find a perfect angle to try and look for a play, as we see maybe a play here by Verdict.
Yeah, another light binding landed onto Linji. Here comes Verdict trying to bail them out. Robux burning down, has no flash. He's going to drop here. Verdict gets his first kill of the game. Very important on the Xin Zhao, and will give some really crucial relief back over to Linji and Gabex in the bottom lane as they look to continue on trying to farm up, trying to scale, and not falling too far behind in CS either. Lynx nearly getting knocked up there, will be able to kite it out, but now Music is here for the fight, still outnumbered by the Apex squad, and they will be pushed back.
They are not going to keep on committing there. Verdict did commit the flash to try and kill Robux there, which I think maybe a bit of overkill, because Lux had no flash, and it's a Lux, so you can technically get that kill without having to commit much. But at the end, they do get that 1 kill. The Dragon, though, because of the control and the fact that Robux is already back in the bot lane, that means that Dragon should be pretty easy to collect by Music, and makes a bit of the dynamic in the bot side much more contestable for the side of Apex. I still feel like with the control that they got early on with that first blood and a bit of the CS advantage that Lynx has been able to accrue, that the Caitlyn Lux is doing completely fine. And if they take the turret before the 12-minute mark, that's going to be a big, big victory for the side of Apex.
Completely agree with you there, TDS. So they are focusing in on towards this first Dragon. Looks like they will be able to secure it. Verdict going to try to trade for the Void Grubs up on the top side. And it does look like he will be able to secure them. Not really a lot of opportunities to interrupt this, so I would think he grabs all 3 with relative ease. Question is, does Music revisit the bottom side to try to take more camps? It looks like he is going to, and that really makes it a very worth trade for the Grubs.
Yeah, it's funny that Music pretty much has made this bot side jungle his. Like, it's actually just completely in his control, and he's doing whatever he wants down there. The Xin Zhao, I'm not sure if he has been able to find a lot of gold down there, so even though he gets the grubs like you're mentioning, Music still controls so much of this bot lane. And look at the movement. Samikin is also trying to come down here. If they are able to pull a little bit more pressure down here, could end up being a good dive by the side of Aporia.
Yeah, they are going to have to wait on another wave here as that one got cleared out just a little bit too fast. Music willing to commit the time. Coming on in here now as the wave arrives. He's willing to buy a little bit of extra time, keep Gabex from being able to recall. There's the dive in from Samikin. Doesn't get the knock up on towards anybody, but Rovex and Lynx going to be available for the backup. Samikin leading the charge onto Linji. Music falling just a little bit too low. Execute onto Rovex. This is a messy dive, and it is not going out the way Aporia wanted. Flashback in from Samikin to finish the kill. Music gets the other. It's a 2-for-1. It does not look pretty, but it comes out favorable for Aporia.
It's so weird, but at the end, Samikin still is alive. They also get Lynx out and Music, and nobody gets a kill onto Samikin. So overall, at the end of the day, it's actually not a horrible trade, although Verdict's still looking in for something here.
Yeah, Lynx is in a rough position. He's got nowhere left to go. He'll go down, but the wind becomes lightning. And it really ends up being a 2-for-2. One of the kills was an execute on a Rovex, so that doesn't get you any value. The turret plate's also going over towards Aporia. I would say they come out ahead, but I would say they're probably kicking themselves a little bit on the execution there.
Well, Corki did get two plates in the mid lane as well, so it kind of equals out the value that you got in those plates down there because the Corki gets it by himself. But overall, you still are going for what you wanted, right? You force dive, you kill the 2 targets, and you're also really, really close to taking down the bot lane turret. It depends on how much they take before taking down the turret, but it also means now that the dive next time is going to be a bit more difficult, because now you do have the Bower on the Tam Kench.
Nice angle here from Samikin. Will chunk out Zep a fair bit. I did see that Rovex in the bottom lane got rooted up by that last embrace coming through from Linji. Looks like they got a little bit of damage off of that, but nothing unrecoverable. As they continue to try to set up coming into the mid-game-ish period here. Second Void Grubs going to be spawning before too long, and then that ever-so-coveted Rift Herald.
And it looks like Music is already over on the top side, so probably going to be a trade where Music gets the second set of Grubs, and then they just try and make a play down here in the bot lane. Ooh, again.
Root onto Rovex. He pre-flashes away to try to build some distance. Lynx is up too far, though. Slowed down, dove onto by Verdict, and Verdict is now on a killing spree. 3 to the Xin Zhao.
3 kills to Verdict. They do have a lot of good potential push here with the Senna and the Xin Zhao. And then Robex has no flash either, so he has to be a bit careful about maybe being the target of a potential dive. Music is really far away as well. They have to give up some of the damage here.
Yep, those extra Void Grub damage is going to help them get through those plates just a little bit faster. And that is going to be so helpful for them as they look to just continue to stack on up and get more and more gold into the spot lane's hands. It is a gold advantage to Apex at this stage of the game. Even though all the kills are on Verdict, they've been able to share the wealth a little bit, especially with that CS advantage on Zep.
And this important thing, so far with the way that the game has been going, the fact that they've been able to keep it as close as they can, makes it so that the composition that technically speaking should be stronger later on in the game, be in a perfectly fine spot. Like, you don't really care about losing out the early game if you're able to keep it as close as possible. But the fact that they've been able to accrue a small gold lead does make it really valuable for the side of Apex. And now Aporia needs to find ways to turn around the situation and try and get even more gold lead, particularly for the Caitlyn, because she's going to find a typical power drop where she kind of becomes the same champion or still keeps being the same champion. Meanwhile, everyone else kind of just becomes stronger. So she needs to come into that spot, and I think getting this first turret is going to be one of the first steps towards that.
Yeah, and this we may be seeing a little bit of why some people are starting to consider the grubs a little bit of a trap. They're going to get 6 grubs here, which everybody's always so excited to get those little mites spawned alongside you, but they are getting completely demolished in the bot lane off of this. The whole wave going to end up missed. Hedek trying to go for an all-in, does not get the knock-up. To finish my point here, they're going to lose their bot lane turret. They lost a bunch of CS. They're going to lose the second dragon. They've given up a lot to be able to secure the full grub stacks.
Yeah, the part here with the Void Grubs is how much value the Xin Zhao does get. I think he made the decision so that when the Xin Zhao is going to be part of some of those fights, the Xin Zhao is going to be extremely strong. But on the other side, like you're mentioning, the stronger part of the side for Aporia is going to be that bot side. They have Caitlyn really strong with quite a good amount of CS deficit. They have the Maokai also being quite strong thanks to dragons that he's been able to get, and also the AP already kind of completed for himself. And then you have a Senna Tamkins that are going to take a long time to ramp up. So if you try to put them head to head, what do you value more? Having those 3 champions strong or having the Xin Zhao be extremely strong? It's kind of the question here.
Yeah, and gonna be a lot of eggs in the Verdict basket for them to be able to get to that point. He's going to have to be the bridge to the late game here. You go late enough, Zep is going to be powerful, Linchi's going to be powerful. They're just going to naturally get that way from the way their champions operate, but you're going to need to make sure you don't just get completely strangled out of the game. So you can see Lynx and Rovex now have rotated up to the top side. That's going to give some priority over to Aporia once that Rift Herald gets spawned. And it is just going to be so difficult for Verdict to be able to make sure that not too many resources go away and that Aporia doesn't completely snowball out of control.
Exactly. They need to try and put a stop to that in this way. They have a good enough lead. Robex maybe collapse here actually with the way that Verdict is trying to move, but it's not going to look like a potential play. They do have 5 members here. Meanwhile, they just have the K'Sante pushing bot lane, so I'm kind of curious if Aporia is actually going to pull the trigger heavily here or just try and leave the K'Sante to collect the turret down there.
They might need to call some additional forces over here to help out Samakin. This is a 3-man push on a mid with those extra mites. Look at all these mites coming on in. They're going to melt through this so fast, maybe underestimating all the power that those Void Grub stacks give. As that turret is going down, they will get a couple of plates in exchange for it on the top side, but nice play there by Apex to take advantage of the fact that they have the numbers advantage on this side of the map.
Yeah, they were kind of giving up the push in the turret in the top lane turret like you were mentioning, but it's kind of a given anyway. Lynx and Robots were going to get this sort of push anyway, so they traded for a turret that still gives them quite a bit of value. They are going to end up giving up the full turret plates, going in favor of the Caitlyn Lux, which it's a lot of gold value that you end up giving up for free in a really effective way. But I think that the fact that Apex is reading what it's worth giving up for what they can get, it's still a really nice thing to see. Like, they cannot get everything, especially with the way that their comp works. So they have to be willing to make some of these trades happen, and I think they took the smarter ones.
Focusing on this turret, gonna get pushed off by Gabex, but they're gonna take a big chunk of damage here for getting stunned up. The turret is down, the teleport's incoming, Gabex will drop, and Kadek is here just a little bit too late to make anything happen. Now going to be full power for that Rift Herald, 5 men strong for Aporia as they move over towards Shelly, and she will be getting over pretty easily.
Yeah, this pretty much should be the Rift Herald collected by them. They have no Temkench in at all for the next couple of seconds, so they cannot force a fight to happen here. Really weird that they decide to engage in that sort of situation where they already kind of weathered the storm. They knew they were going to lose the turret anyway, but now they end up losing the Rift Herald, and this can be one of the ways to just try and push the issue really hard, right? You send Lynx and Robix mid lane, you have the Rift Herald, you take down 2 turrets, and with the fact that the Dragon now is going to reach Soul Point, you have to be willing to contest one of the 2 things. Either mid lane with Rift Herald or the Dragon.
Absolutely. And mid lane with Rift Herald seems likely to be on the menu. You can kind of use it to do both, right? You can send somebody charging through mid, get some pressure there, force people to come and respond, rotate to the Dragon. There's a lot of good decision-making that can be done here by Aporia, as they are certainly going to be focusing around this part of the map. Would also be nice if they could secure that objective quickly before the Dragon even spawns, open up the map a little bit with that mid-turret, and that might be on the menu here as they see 2 bot. They don't know exactly where Corki is, but 3 members strong in the mid lane. They can get music over here. They can go for this.
They can try and go for this, actually, and I'm pretty sure they are going to not only get the control, but they probably will try to look for a pick as well. Even though right now there's a couple of items completed in a couple of champions, damage is not as tanky as you would think. Same for the Ornn. I think that they can actually burst them out if you're not careful enough, as Lynx is just looking, oh, knock up.
Here comes Call, the Forge God going to land onto Lynx. They're focusing everything onto him. There's the dive in from Verdict, trying to melt the Caitlyn, but not going to be able to find the damage in time, as here is Lawrence, already all out, already squishy. The dive in from Samakin as they look to find themselves a priority target. Not going to be able to land on anybody. Advance forward from Lawrence once again, looking to lead the charge even in the all-out form. Pulls back in the bot lane as Linji will be the first one to drop. Gabex is next on the menu. There's the package thrown down by Zep to be able to finish off the opposing mid laner. It's a 2-for-1 so far in the fight, as Kadek and Verdict are too low to frontline any further, and Zep just trying to find poke on the side.
Not gonna lie, surprised that Zep didn't go for the backline. They had the Caitlyn on range, they had the Locks on range. They could have looked to aggressively try and kill these 2 champions, but instead they focus on Samaking and at the end end up taking the 2-for-1. Verdict looking a bit aggressive. Oh, Lynx.
Ooh, there's that Dawning Shadow from across the map, and Zep has the damage to finish off Lynx. Lawrence has to retreat. He doesn't have the damage to finish off any of these members, and this could be Dragon number 3 going over towards Apex. Aporia, they hunger for a little too much, and they end up giving up a lot.
Yeah, and that's going to be a potential Dragon, like you're mentioning here. Soul Point potentially going to get denied, although health bars are quite low for Burdick and Zep and Kadek. They still have more numbers here. Should be a free Dragon for them, and with no teleport on the K'Sante, I think they just get out scot-free.
Very likely here. They managed to secure themselves another Dragon. That stops the stacking even further. They got more gold onto Zep. I think if you are Apex, you're very happy with how these last couple of minutes have gone. Ended up losing out on the fight. Could have maybe gone for a little bit more from Zep off the package, but at the end of the day, you've denied the Dragon, you've gotten more money into your Corki, you're scaling up, and there is not a really clear path to being able to close out this game quickly for Aporia.
Yeah, we're reaching a point where Corki is close to getting the 3rd item, right? Also, Manamune close to being completed. So now you're going to be facing one of the stronger 3-item champions in the game in the form of the Corki, plus the fact that the Ornn is also reaching stronger critical mass. Has 1 item just now, but it's soon to get the 2nd item, level 14 as well, so the Ornn upgrades, and then you've been able to just neutralize a really strong point of the game for the side of Aporia. You were able to take away one of the Dragons, so Soul is going to be even more delayed, and now just wait for your time, and Apex can find a really good position to not only get back into the game, but control it.
Control it they shall. At least that is the game plan. Still so powerful for Verdict. He's got himself that Titanic Hydra already done. He's going to dive in. He's willing to fight up against Lawrence. He might be a little deeper than he wants to be, though, as he gets all outed over the wall. And this would be a disastrous time to get picked for Verdict. He gets gobbled up by Gabex. and will get pulled out to safety there, but the follow-up Maokai ultimate going to look to lock down this Tom Kench next. Linji landing damage from over the wall. Here comes the call of the Forge God, trying to focus on towards music. He takes a boatload of damage and will drop down to Kadek, but the front to back does not stop there. It's Lawrence leading the charge forward, the slow across the rest. Teleport in from Samakin. Isn't too late though. He's in the middle of 4 members, trying to go for the Soul Unbound, focusing down Zep, looking to burst him out, but the damage just cannot be found. Finally, Lynx will be able to blast him across the dash through from Samakin, and the ace comes through for Aporia.
That was such a weird sequence of events and a really weird fight, but Lynx stands his ground with Samakin as well. Samakin just making the play work out so effectively, and what could have been a disaster play for Aporia turns into a really good win and now able to put the game back in their favor. I'm still scared because this is a fight that at this point in the game shouldn't be as close as it is, but overall the fact that they win it, it's still really, really good for them. They need to try and keep pushing the issue, and now with Baron up, they can try and maybe look to contest it or force a pick onto someone just blindly going into the Baron.
Was looking really dangerous there for a moment where Samakin was not finishing off Zep quickly enough, but they have the damage between these two AD carries in Samakin and Lynx to be able to come out ahead in the fight, and they piece themselves together a big win. This is now a 2K gold lead over towards Aporia. Baron on the table. You've got to believe that's going to be on the menu soon. 3 members around this bottom side to secure the Rift Scuttler, but not going to be too impactful as it's 2 minutes to go until the Dragon.
It's still 2 minutes for the next Dragon. They can technically give it up. It's not like they actually need to commit to fight around it, but it should be an interesting victory for them if they are able to try and push around it. Also, the fact that they're still scaling, like, we need to keep bringing it up, Gordo, because it's something that does matter, especially if you go past the 21-minute mark, the 30-minute mark. That's where a difference can end up happening.
It really is here. Samakin, really thankful for all of that extra gold he was able to piece together for himself. That does indeed end up producing them a very, very important bit of extra gold, and on a very, very important target as well, as he is going to be so crucial to being able to put together the damage that they need.
Now looking with how the game kind of slowed down, right? The fact that we're in such a low state after some of the fighting that we've seen and how some of the aggression was looking at, I feel like this is just such a nice spot to be in as Apex. Like, they are waiting for the next Dragon to spawn, yes, but not even the side lanes are that effective for Aporia. And that's something that I was kind of expecting to see even more aggressive. Samakin and the K'Sante being able to put even more pressure, but it just feels like there's simply not that much. Although now we begin seeing the control over in the Dragon River.
For sure here. That is going to be the focus. They want to get themselves on a soul point on the Aporia side as soon as they possibly can. Lawrence takes a little bit of poke, but he is plenty tanky. 2 items deep on the K'Sante. Should be able to hold his ground just fine. Still getting chunked out to about half here. Hasn't even gotten to go all out yet. Looking for a potential pick. He finds Linji way too far up on the Senna rather, as the dive in from Samakin gets plenty of damage on as well. They are going to be able to melt down Verdict, and now it's going to be the kite back coming through from Lawrence. He manages to stay alive in the all out and is regenning back up. The damage from Gabax cannot be ignored, but they will be able to finish him off in time. It's a 3-for-0 fight for Aporia as the crucial targets are found by Samakin.
And that was a This Is K'Sante moment right there, with Lawrence just finding Benji in the perfect spot. I don't know what the Senna was looking for there. The poke was nice enough, but then not reacting in time, just putting herself in so much danger, and at the end, putting the team into an awful spot. A fight that could have been much better for the side of Apex turns into a perfect fight for Aporia. Nobody dies, they get the soul point, and now Baron could be the next point of contention for them to try and look forward to.
Absolutely here. Still more and more and more gold coming on towards this Yone. So crucial in these fights, and it has not been able to be answered effectively in quite a while. Now, Dragon Soul going to be on the menu coming up soon, and only just now has Kadek started to give out those Ornn upgrades, the first one going to himself. This is going to be their last chance at this upcoming potential Baron fight or at the Soul. If they lose another fight as handedly as they've lost the last couple, this could be the end for Apex.
Yeah, it's not a fight that they can just take lightly. They have to find a really good angle for them and then try and make the situation be as good as possible for them. Like you're mentioning, if they lose the Baron buff, pushing into their turrets is going to be really, really scary. And also pick potential may end up being quite powerful looking into the Baron. Xin Zhao took way too much damage there.
Yeah, Verdict going to have to be on the back foot now for a little bit. Does not heal himself up too quickly. It's the TP in from Samikin once again. Zep's still pushing on the bottom side, but they see him there. They know this is going to force him to TP up. They can just force the Baron here and find a fight on their own terms. Aporia going to start it up.
And they already have some traps down. They have the control with the Vision. They know the Corki's TPing now, and they are going to actually keep rushing it. They are quite close in taking it down.
Yeah, Twisting Advance going to slow them down. The Hunting Baron dropping lower and lower as they will look to finish it off. The dive in from Lawrence, just trying to keep them as far away as they can. All out over the wall. Verdict is nowhere near the Purple Worm. He's going to go down solo bolo by Lawrence as the Baron is claimed for Aporia, and they look to chase down any stragglers left. They've been able to finish off Zep on the other side. It's only 3 members to 5, and the Baron push is coming.
They find the teamfight victory, they find the kills onto the Corki and the Xin Zhao, and they also find the big Purple Worm. They take down the Baron, and they're going to look into taking more from the base on the side from Apex. And Lynx has been playing such a good game so far. The 2 carries that we mentioned in the draft, Gordo, are stepping up really, really well. And also, credit to Lawrence, he was doing such a good job at keeping them at bay in the Baron attempt.
Absolutely here, as they are still continuing to melt them down. So quickly being able to finish on off these targets. Have to see if this is going to be the one that ends it. They are going to take the recall, so will be potentially one more fight, but the lead is now absolutely massive for Aporia.
Exactly, they have pretty much complete control at this point of the game. It's obviously not 10k, which it's the one thing that you have to be happy about if you're on the Apex side. But with the Baron buff, with the members that they have at this point, really, really strong. 3+ items on the Caitlyn and on the Yone. That means that now they are looking to just try and close it out as quickly as they can. Also, there's no inhibitor down, actually, so maybe that could be a point where Apex can look to try and keep control, but I'm not sure how long that's going to get, especially with the Soul spawning in 130.
Absolutely. Soul going to be the target that is focused on here if they don't finish it off this Baron. That's a catch on a Verdict, though. He's up way too far. There's nobody around to back him up. It's going to be focused down. Lynx claims the kill. He is unstoppable. And now 5 versus 4 pushing in with Baron. Gorky's still on the top side. Aporia might just look to end it here.
They are waiting, they are taking a bit too long to be able to control this, and Aporia is just looking as aggressively as they can. They have the 2 waves pushing with the Yone also pushing down there in the bot lane. Plus the Corki just getting back, no Verdict for 20 seconds. That means that this could be the perfect point of control to try and take down the base. Although, Music taking a lot of damage. Oh,
flashing in. They're just focusing on to Zep. They want to be able to melt him down with the damage that Lawrence brings to the table in the all-out. Lawrence gets the kill. And now with only 3 members left to defend, this 4-man squad of Aporia are looking to close it out here. The headshots come through from Lynx, and Kadek hits the ground as Verdict looks to move forward and try to find some way to salvage the base. Baron minions with 4 members, though. There is just no play left for Apex. The dive in from Samikin does not find its mark, but look at how quickly Verdict melts. The base is next on the menu. Knock-up from Tom Kench will stall the inevitable, but it is all over for game number 1. Aporia gonna kick things off with a 1-0 start.
Yeah, the Sid staying true to what we were expecting. They take down the lower Sid, and Aporia moving to 1-0. I want to give props to Apex. I think they played the game out in a manner that wasn't necessarily bad. They had good moments, they had good fights, and maybe they kept control a little bit longer, could have turned around this game better. But Apex or Aporia showing why they are the higher seed. The players playing perfectly well. Lynx and Samikin, 2 players who were shouting out to try and have a lot of power this game. They came through and then showcased their abilities. Really good look for Aporia so far, and I'm excited to see how it's going to keep on going.
Absolutely here. A really, really solid performance there. They play out their game plan as written. They are able to secure themselves a lot of priority in the bot lane early on. They build themselves up a massive gold, massive CS, massive kill lead across the board in the bottom lane. willing to just let that top lane play out as it is. And yeah, Verdict gets plenty of resources, Verdict gets the grubs, but it just doesn't matter in the face of all the resources they were able to put into their key carries and how much payoff that gave them in those late game fights.
Exactly, and that's a difference that can matter, especially looking into these OQs. How effective your carries are going to play, but also how the rest of the members are playing for those carries. And that difference could end up mattering going even further forward when you're facing the stronger teams, right? That's when you really look at how the carries perform and how effective they are.
Absolutely there. Well, that's going to do it for game number 1. To cut the VOD there. We will be back before too long, likely covering Aporia again in game number 2.